Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nahmadu wa nusalli ala rasulil kareem. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, viewers, brothers, sisters of IQRA TV. With me, Yusuf Agoudi, and we're here doing real talk and having a real time and real debate and real passionate understanding and agreeing to disagree in some areas. However, before the break, we were talking about BME representation, local authority. We've got the former Lord Mayor of Bradford and the deputy, at one time the deputy Lord Mayor, and a seasoned politician for 40 years, 30 years as a local councillor, as well as Brother Iqbal Bana, whose face you see regularly with me, and will be more than regular, I'm hoping, for the next year or so to come. Allah give him a long life. Ameen.
Tandurusti wali de bhai.
Ameen. Tandurusti, yes. And even our former Lord Mayor of Bradford, Gazanfar Sahab, Allah keep you well. Thank you very much for coming. Okay, so how do we tackle this massive gap? I mean, we were talking earlier, just before the break, we were talking about the disparity in terms of several local authorities, and more namely AWIA, Association West Yorkshire Authority, which is a...
It's a national thing. I mean, the Prime Minister's report that she commissioned, which is called the Diversity Audit, which was published 4 weeks ago, I think. I mean, actually clearly shows, which I sent a copy to you, which actually shows that across the whole of the country, not just Bradford, across the whole of the country, there are huge disparities in opportunities for black and minority ethnic communities, not just within the public sector, but also within the private sector. Now, we may not be able to do much about the private sector, but certainly we can do something in the public sector because we pay the taxes. And people like Gazanfar and them, who are political masters, can actually decide what we want to do at a local level. So what I'm saying is that, you know, following what the Prime Minister's report came out with, but even before that, we have known this as an issue. Our young people are looking for role models, and we don't provide role models in the public sector. You know, there's very few Lord Kamlesh Patels in this part of the world. Okay, and we have people like Amjad Pervez, you know, who's a local Bradford person. Gazanfar knows him quite well, very well. You know, he's one of the highly respected people in the public sector. He's now part of the Bradford 50 vision, looking at the strategy for the economic development of. And I'd like to bring Amjad here one day to talk about, you know, what it all means. But other than that, in terms of public sector positions of power, we don't really have. I mean, to me, Bradford should have a chief executive from the BME community, based on the population that we have. Bradford should have deputy chief executives. We should have chief officers, you know, and deputy chief officers.
But yet we don't have anybody in
the SLT. We don't have any. So that's what I'm saying. We have failed. We have failed our own community.
Okay,
can I just take it Iqbal Saab's point a bit further, actually. Bradford, unfortunately, has this problem, this issue. And when I was a councillor, actually, I have raised it time after time, number of occasions I've raised this issue. That unfortunately, it isn't that Bradford doesn't have an assistant director or director from, or chief executive from the Asian community or the Muslim community. Unfortunately, Bradford doesn't have didn't used to have a single director who actually lived in Bradford. There was most of the directors were outside of Bradford. So
that's not unique to Bradford. No. If you go to Leeds, the chief executive of Leeds does not live in Leeds. The chief executive of Wakefield doesn't live in Wakefield.
No, but I'm saying but that's what I'm just saying. But at least somebody lives in Leeds. You know, but not all of the assistant directors, all chief executive lives in Bradford. If you don't have any stake in Bradford, then how can you actually...
That's an important point that you raised, Gazanfar Saab, that somebody working in that borough, in that city, would care, would have a stake, would have more of a concern. However, you know, the issues, whatever arising, living in and out of Bradford and what's going on, they'll know about it. If someone's travelling, you know, out of count, I mean, let me give you another example then. You know, London, London-centric, and us northerners, north-south divide we've got, and the Scottish Parliament or the government, and then the referendum, the Welsh, everybody feeling that it's too London-centric and everything's done in Whitehall without anything off Watford Gap and further on. It's not, you know, not concerned, no concern for them. politicians travel all over, people go all over, but more importantly, we can agree to disagree whether it's Iqbal's view or your view.
Just to finish on this point, actually, I've been here for the last 40 years. I've lived in Bradford. I've been a councillor for 30 years. I lost count actually how many chief executives have been when I've been a councillor. So that just shows you that, okay, my commitment to Bradford is still there. But those people who came and gone, this is the point I was trying to make actually, that this is the one of the argument is what I used to use actually, that people need to have a stake in the city, and those people who actually are in a decision making positions, they must show their commitment, and then they show the part of the society actually, the part of, you know, so that we have more confidence in them, and that way that we will, you know, could move forward. You know, unfortunately, this is the tragedy with Bradford. Bradford people have officers coming in for a short period of time, and as soon as they get a better offer elsewhere, they leave halfway through. Their unfinished agendas, unfinished policies they started to pursue. Some of those policies have a negative impact, and they are not there actually to see those negative impact of their policy they were pursuing. That's the point I'm making, is that if they were around, then you could hold them responsible for some of these failures of the city actually, some of these failures of the policies, which they haven't been successful. So that was the only reason I was saying that people need to have a stake wherever they are making decision-making positions.
I mean, I'm going to throw another kind of worms into this equation. Sorry, then I'll let you come in. And we've also got a couple of calls waiting to speak to us as well. But what I was going to say, I mean, this argument wouldn't stand, I'd say, in this day and age. Because something happening across the Atlantic, like, for example, Mr. Trump's announcement, has an effect over here in the UK. So we live in an ever-growing global village where things across the Atlantic or in Africa, in Europe or in Asia has direct impact in the UK and UK politics and UK communities. And civil servants, be it or private businesses, they travel up and down the country. My business might be based in Leeds. I might be living in maybe Lancashire somewhere or Yorkshire. So, you know, I might be a civil servant working in London and living up north. So these things happen. However, the work and the core responsibility is for those that are elected. Let's see who's on the line, then I'll come back to you, Iqbal Bhai, if that's okay. We'll just take one call for now. Have you still got a caller waiting for us? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, sir. How can we, what do you have to say? What's your name, sir?
Yeah, it's Javed Akhtar from Leeds, and I find this debate quite interesting. And obviously, I would like to say that some of the issues that you have raised, yes, they are absolutely valid. But however, if you go back 20 years ago and look at the local authorities structure nowadays, especially with the BME communities, not only the elected members but also the officers, and I think we need to be encouraging more people to join the public sector rather than saying that this has gone wrong. And I have a lot of respect for my colleagues in Bradford who are doing absolutely a fantastic work. But what we need to understand sometimes is this, that when you are elected representative of any authority, you're not just there for one particular community, but you're there to have an interest for all the electors who live in your ward and the city as whole. So I think we do need to have these sort of debates, but sometimes I think it probably will help if we encourage the young people on a positive note.
Okay, thank you, Javed.
He's a councillor, brother.
Are you a councillor,
yes,
Javed?
He's a lead councillor.
I am a councillor.
Yeah, I thought so.
Oh,
Assalamu alaikum, how are you?
You
see, I mean, coming back, I mean, I partly agree with you. I mean, a councillor does not represent a particular section of the community. A councillor represents people who voted for them, and including people who didn't vote for them, because they have the whole constituency to represent. But what I'm saying to you is people who are in positions of power then have the opportunity to determine how that organization moves forward. And if you take Gazanfar's point, I agree with him to a certain extent. The failure, in my view, is that the local authority did not have in place a policy and a process for recruiting, progressing, and promoting people from within.
Okay.
If
we've still got Javed on the line right now, and I want to ask Javed, what's so different in Leeds compared to Bradford?
Well, I can't. As I said, I've got a lot of respect for my colleagues in Bradford, and I think they are doing absolutely fantastic work. And I know for a fact that as we talk now, you have a deputy leader of the council, which is from the BME community. There are many councillors who are from the BME community. In fact, my brother Ghazanfar Khalik, who's on your show, and I'm watching the screen, and I can see brother is with you. And we've seen many Lord Mayors of the city. But with regards to the younger generation coming onto the working for the local authorities, I think we need to encourage them. And I know many offices in Leeds where they started very in junior positions. Now they're in after 20, 30 years, they are into the senior position. So I think we need to work for the future generation. And I would encourage people to work for the local authorities, because not only they are satisfying themselves, but obviously they will be delivering the service on behalf of the local authorities to the communities that those people who live in those cities or towns. Okay.
Thank you very much, Brother Javed Akhtar from Leeds, Councillor Javed Akhtar from Leeds calling us. Maybe we'll have him here on our show one day, and if we can invite him in and see if he can give us the other side of the story. I'm just going to ask you to come in.
I totally agree with him that we need to encourage our young people to come into the public sector. I think the problem has been, what I'm saying is that the public sector has not shown young people that there are opportunities that takes them from maybe at the base level to the chief executive officer level. And I think that is what I'm saying. I mean, when I was advising the Home Secretary, one of the groups that the Home Secretary asked me to work with in the police structure was the progression promotion recruitment progression promotion advisory group that I sat on. And again, this is a fundamental issue within that there were not enough people joining the police service. When they were joining, they were leaving very early for all sorts of reasons, which I won't go into because that's also available. It's well documented. That when they were being, there was limited time opportunity for progression and promotion, and therefore the trust and confidence within police service was lacking in a lot of cases. So, and similar issues. And my challenge to people in Leeds and Bradford, I mean, I worked in Leeds, not worked with Leeds, but I worked with one of the most highly respected chief executives that Leeds had in the last 40 years, Phil Smith, and I was advisor to some of the Leeds officers there in the early 80s when Fabian Hamilton was a councillor, and I've known Fabian all my life virtually. So again, there are people who've come into the organization, but they've then moved out because they've not seen opportunities within the organization being presented to them. So here we have a failure of systems within the organizations themselves.
Ghazanfar Bhai, I'd like you to come in and say a few words before I ask you another question. And it's great having this discussion.
I agree with Councillor Javed from Leeds, whatever what he said actually, that obviously the council is trying to do their best actually, and given the circumstances they are in. Just going back into Bradford actually, Bradford a long time ago actually, we used to have created equal rights subcommittee actually, encourage actually to set up all those mechanisms actually to make sure that the ethnic minority has been treated fairly. There are processes, the mechanism in place actually to encourage them to make promotions and progressions and everything else actually. But unfortunately that didn't materialize actually. I'm just sorry to say that actually at the one time we were Bradford Council was taken to Industry Tribunal more often than we can actually care to remember actually, and they used to lose every case actually went to the Industry Tribunal, used to lose actually, and then my question was actually, what's the point of having this equal rights subcommittee? If this is the mechanism which you put it in place, then and then beginning to employers are beginning, particularly from ethnic minority communities, are taking us to Industry Tribunal and losing the cases. So there must be something wrong. Now, principally, needs to be done, and obviously we need to encourage the young people. And I think one of the issue which I personally sometime have felt actually that within the BME community actually, those people who are talented, they like to go to different professions rather than coming to local authority. That's one of the issues actually. Sometimes we actually have actually discussed it, And I think that's some issue actually that needs to be addressed as well, that we need to encourage young people from, particularly from the Muslim community, actually going into local authority. They don't see local authority as attractive as going to be a doctor or a pilot engineer or some other profession. You know, that is, unfortunately, that is
in your days, you had a gentleman called Qudrat Shah. A guy that I have a lot of time for and respect
Qudrat Shah is a very close friend of mine.
Yeah, Qudrat was a good guy.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
But I think
Dil Shah, there was other people, you know, I mean, I remember actually, those are people actually, but there were very few, this is saying very few people actually who had caliber and education and the quality and profession, right, to go into
the question would be that people like Qudrat and Dilshad and others who came into the public sector, Ali Jan Haider in health,
Ali Jan, he's still
for
there.
Example, I mean, these are people who are extremely knowledgeable, extremely competent, but they were not being given the opportunities to progress within those organizations. And I think, you know, that stifled them. So what the question is, what can people, I mean, you're no longer a councillor, but you are in a position where you can influence the councillors now. What can we do? And this, you know, this hopefully the next stage. What can we do now to put policies and procedures in place that will negate what had happened with people like Qudrat and others, right? And I mean,
big question.
The public services are going through a phenomenal challenge at the moment. Local authorities are having to constrain themselves, and all this austerity and the cutting back of the budgets is putting huge pressures on local authorities. Services are being cut left, right, and centre. We need to make sure that we have talented people from within our own communities who go back to the point that you made, which is they are living in the community, they know what the community's needs are, and they can then shape those services in a way that best meets the needs of the communities within the parameters of the finance that allows. So it is important that we encourage young people, we tell them the opportunities that are available, and we show them that there's a progression of system there that takes them, if they're put in the hard work, they put in the energy and the effort, again going back to your point, that they can, inshallah, reach the highest level. At the moment, we've not done that.
I think the way forward would be actually, which since not being no longer a councillor, so I've taken a fresh look at the issues and that how we actually can move forward, given my experiences and I think actually the knowledge you have within the community, actually, I think the politician has one extent, they have one role to play, and I think if we leave everything to the politician, actually, I don't think the community is going to move forward. This is my honest opinion, you know. So I would say that.
Why do you say that?
No, because the politician have constraints on them. You know, so whichever politician you talk to, you know, okay, they would say one thing at you when they are.
They're not truthful to their word.
No. When they are in a particular circumstances or a party they represent, actually, they have to follow the party lines. You know, unfortunately, that is, and sometimes there's a 3-line whips, actually, that if you go out against the party, actually, then that you are no longer part of that particular party. Right, okay. So the politician. So my view, why I'm coming to this conclusion, I was talking to Amjad Parvez the other day, 3 days ago, that we have talent in the community. The people who have vast experiences, like myself, retired now. In a sense, I have more valuable time. Like we utilize people like Maulana Fazaldad, who has the knowledge of education, profession. Amjad as a business people, Qudrat Shah, other people that you know, those people have knowledge and experiences. Okay, so we need to create a think tank of those people actually, and they need to come up, you know, and you say, well, this is sort of 10-point agenda actually that we need to local authority to implement this, you know. Okay, so some sort of achievable goals, you know, this is what we would like to see from day one until
with targets set.
Target set in 5 years' time. This is where we wanted to see the local authorities to be at stage.
Okay. Fantastic. Unfortunately, it's that time. Very quickly, time's flown by. And we have the last minute or so. You want to say something?
I was going to say, I mean, I'm deeply grateful to Guzan. I mean, he's been very honest and open with us today. I think, you know, he's articulated some of the difficulties in the past. But to me, I think the future needs to be mapped out now. And maybe the way he suggested, people like Amjad, Dilshad, Ali Jan, Qudrat Shah, in people like Ishtiaq Ahmed, because he for years fought for racial justice and equality in this town, in this city. People like them need to come together. But at the end of the day, it is the councillors who can either make or break this from happening.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Iqbal Bhai, and thank you very much, Ghazaffar Bhai. Fantastic, and we must have you both back in with our other First Lord Mayor, Ajit Saab, when he comes back from his sunny holiday in Bradford, in Pakistan. So, brothers, sisters, viewers, we're here, we're live, and we're saying goodbye now. Unfortunately, time has flown by. Stay with us. We'll have the Q&A following shortly. Next week, same time, same place, Bradford Live, Real Talk. Join us once again, 6 while 7. From all of us here in Bradford, we say Allah Hafiz, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.